Hello, I'm Louis Averhoff. I'm one of the developers for the chat system. The other developers are Mark Cameron and Tariq Human. The product owner for BreazeHome 5.0 is Masoud Sadjadi, and the mentor is also Masoud Sadjadi. For sprint one, we're going to be talking about 3 user stories, and they are as follows. The first one is the feasibility study. Here we conducted a feasibility analysis by defining what the current problem is with the chat system in BreazeHome. Then we define the current status of the solution in BreazeHome. Next, we looked at alternative solutions that have been implemented by other competitive websites. Then we did a comparison and contrast analysis of those alternative solutions, and we discussed the advantages and disadvantages of each alternative solution. Then we created our own solution that we plan to implement into BreazeHome. Of course, we also did a video of this feasibility study. The second one I'd like to talk about is the Backlog Workshop. Here, each of the developers came together and we discussed what new features we would like to add to the chat system. Of course, we also add in some user stories in terms of improving some of the current functionalities of the chat system. And of course, we also provided a video to go with this user story as well. The last one I'd like to talk about is setting up the development environment. Here, each of the developers make sure that each module that BreazeHome uses, primarily the front end, Django API, and the chat server, were all up and running. And we also provide screenshots to showcase that we were able to have everything up and running. So now I'm going to be talking about user stories that we plan on working on in the future. But before I do that, I'd like to explain how we calculated our hours for each user story. Primarily, we use Sprint Poker. So if you're not familiar with Sprint Poker, it's basically each member of the team decided on a card, and that card has a number. That card represents how many hours you expect to work on the feature, and each number is representative of some Fibonacci series. So, and of course, I'm going to explain how we arrived to that number in each user story. So the first one we want to talk about is defining agents user story. So the main idea with this is that you're a client and you want to connect to an agent, and this agent might be someone that could be local to your area, or an agent that's not local to your area. So what we have is we have two text boxes that are going to be embedded in the chat box. Those two are a name text box and a search text box and a location text box. So if you wanted to search an agent by the name and location, then more than likely you want to, it will give you an agent that's in that location that you specified. If not, then it will just give you agents with the name in every single state. And the number of hours we allocated is 13, primarily because the front end uses AngularJS, and most of us are not familiar with AngularJS, and so it will take some time for us to be able to learn that language, or that framework, I should say. The second one I'm going to talk about is starting personal live chat. So this one is after after the client has connected with whatever agent they want to talk to. Here they would have a one-to-one private conversation, meaning no one else will be able to receive whatever messages they send back to each other. And the whole purpose of this is so that a client can be able to find a property to buy or rent. The number of points we allocated was 21, and the reason why it's similar to this first one, the chat server uses a programming language called Elixir, and neither of us are really familiar with it at all. And of course, we have to learn a little bit about socket programming, since some of us haven't ever really programmed using sockets. So the third one I want to talk about is the user online status. Here, regardless of if you're a client or an agent, you would want to be able to figure out if the client or agent is online, offline, or away. And the way we want to go about doing that is next to their name, there will be a little circle indicator with a particular color. Green being if the user has logged into the website, red if the user has logged off the website, and yellow if the online user is away. So we allocated 8 hours to this because all it really is placing like some indicator next to their name and having a little bit of logic of whether they're logged in or not, and then replacing that little circle indicator with a particular color. So it's not really too demanding compared to the other two user stories, and for the most part we're familiar with CSS and HTML, so that shouldn't really be an issue at all. Fourth one is typing indicator. The premise with this one is, even though you're online, it might be the case that you might be away from your computer. So there's just little notification at the top of the message box of saying client name or agent name is typing, and so when you see that, you know that they're at their computer and they're preparing to message you back with a reply. And of course, if they stop typing, then that notification goes away. We allocated 5 because it's just a matter of being able to identify if they're typing or not, and then sending that message back to them. So it shouldn't be that much work, which is why we allocated 5 hours to this. The second to last one is unmatched message notification. So in here, regardless if you're a client or an agent, you want to know how many for each chat room. You want to know how many message there's left for you to read, and this is primarily important for agents where they could potentially have multiple clients. So you would want to know if there's a new message that you haven't read and how many messages there are. So for this one, again, we allocated 13, and this one is not primarily as difficult as the one-to-one, but it still is required for us to be familiar with Elixir, be familiar with how the chat server works. So the last one I want to talk about is the multiple chat rooms. So as I discussed in the last user story, an agent would want to talk to multiple clients at the same time, primarily because it's more efficient to allow them to do so instead of restricting them to only talking to one client at a time. So in here, they could be able to send messages to multiple clients at once, and they can receive multiple messages from clients at once. And so because of this asynchronous nature, and again, because we're not really familiar with Elixir, and we still need to look over how exactly the chat API works, we allocated 21 hours for this. So if you have any questions to us regarding regarding BreazeHome, these are our contacts. If you have any questions to Sadjadi concerning the BreazeHome project, here's his contact as well. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.